JBS's The Jake Ehrenreich Show is brought to you in part by Stephanie and Simon Bergson, the Skolnick Family Charitable Trust, Helene and Barry Lewis, Judy Friedman and Ron Goldstock, in honor of Hyas, Jonathan Fershpan, the memory of Nadia and Milton Bergson, Nira and Ken Abramowitz, Cynthia and Jeffrey Weisenfeld, and by viewers like you.
Live from the Triad Theater in New York City, it's the Jake Ehrenreich Show! Tonight, Jake's guests are actor, singer, and director Mike Burstyn. And a very exciting and unique Catskills Hall of Fame induction to Shecky Greene. And now, please welcome your host, direct from Brooklyn, Jake Ehrenreich!
My name is Jake Ehrenreich. I began my career in the Catskill Mountains as a young musician, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn and the Catskills were very important to me. I actually wrote a stage show, about my life as a child of Holocaust survivors growing up in Brooklyn and the Catskills called A Jew Grows in Brooklyn. And it's, oh, thank you, okay, that's fine. And it has music, and it has comedy, and it has Yidden. And it became very successful. We're so grateful. We spent about 1.5 years right in the heart of Broadway at the beautiful Lambs Theater. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking about my father. So my dad, he never got to see the show. My father had Parkinson's disease when I was doing the show, but he had his wits about him, and he was very excited. He just couldn't travel. And we moved a little bit upstate, and I would meet with my father before driving to the city to do the show, and we would talk. And one day I brought him a very lovely review we got from the New York Times. The New York Times, a beautiful review. It compared us to Billy Crystal's 700 Sundays. I thought he'd be, over the moon like my producers were. He looked at it, he read it, he put it aside. He said, nothing. Okay. I said, all right, whatever. He's sick, who knows. A couple of days later, I bring him a lovely letter that I got from an audience member. We used to get very beautiful letters. He reads the letter, he goes crazy. He says, oh my God, oh yeah, Bruch, this is the best thing, I can't believe it. I said, you're a funny guy. I brought you a review from the New York Times, when I used to read the New York Times, but that's another story. So, and some forgot the guy writes me a letter, and you go crazy. He says, wait a minute, my son, a reviewer has to review your show. That's a job. When someone takes time out of their life to write you a letter, that's truly important. My father was a very wise person, right? You knew my dad. And I learned so much from him. I don't want to mislead you. He did actually get to see an early development production of the show, and that was great. He was over there. He told me, I think I found a cure for Parkinson's. I didn't shake once during the show. And it was beautiful. And we celebrated together. One of the ways we celebrated was my favorite food in life is sushi. So he was going to try sushi for the first time. We went out, we ate sushi. I said, so Dad, what do you think? What do you think of sushi? He said, chillent it isn't. So many cute things about the show. And then, I have a section of my show in the nightclub where I pay homage to the comedians and the tumblers that used to be up in the Catskills. I have a lot of freedom in that section. And one of the things I like to do is if there's a birthday in the audience, I like to announce it, because they used to do that. So one day we had a 93-year-old woman in the audience, and I announced her birthday. She gets up out of her seat. She's like this. She's like, she's going to start singing Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. She's like I said, what? You're 93 years old? How do you have such energy? Is there like a secret? She says, yes, there's a secret. The secret is the 3 Ps. Now I saw, all right, I'm getting set up. This is not the first time this chick has done this sort of thing. I said, fine, I'll bite. What are the 3 Ps? She said, no pets, no plants, no penises. So everybody cracks up, right? I said, sweetheart, sit down. Thank you for sharing. I got to go on with the show. All right, fine. Show goes on. At the end of the show, I'm signing books and CDs out in the lobby. And the woman's right over there. My wife walks up to the woman and said, let me ask you a question. Why no plants? God bless my wife. Which is scary enough. But this lady actually had an answer. She said, look, sweetheart, I don't want to have anything I have to take care of. So tonight, the song I want to sing by a great Jewish composer is by one of the greatest, George Gershwin. Hit it, maestro. It's wonderful, it's marvelous that you should care for me. It's awful nice, it's paradise. It's what I long to see. You made my life so glamorous. Can't blame me for being amorous. We got a great show tonight. Mike Burstyn is here, and a special Hall of Fame induction to Shecky Greene. Stick around. That you should care for me. Oh, it's wonderful.
If you care about Israel and are interested in Jewish life today, there's television just right for you. JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with daily news from Israel and analysis by the leading figures on the world Jewish scene. Evenings from the 92nd Street Y, a weekly Jewish film festival, Jewish culture, Jewish studies, and Jewish entertainment, and live Friday night services every week, as well as high holiday and festival services. JBS, television worth watching.
We're back, and that song I sang, "It's Wonderful," is by George and Ira Gershwin. Where do you begin when discussing the musical importance of Jacob Gershwin, better known as George Gershwin? I could take the entire show and not do it justice. As most great artists are, he was born in Brooklyn, New York. Kidding aside, perhaps an abbreviated listing of the songs he wrote, many with his brother Ira, will spur you to find out more about George Gershwin. Summertime, I Got Rhythm, Embraceable You, Someone to Watch Over Me, Swanee, Our Love Is Here to Stay, They Can't Take That Away From Me, Foggy Day. I mean, and massive works like Rhapsody in Blue, American in Paris, Porgy and Bess. Unbelievable. For his music, he received the Congressional Gold Medal, a special Pulitzer Prize. His life was the subject of a Hollywood film. A Broadway theater was named after him and his brother, as was the Library of Congress Prize for Popular Song. Most amazingly, he accomplished all of this and more in a very brief time. The incomparable George Gershwin died when he was 38 years old. His music is an everlasting gift to all of us and to the world. God bless his memory. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our wonderful, wonderful announcer, Brienne Bergson. I love this. I love that.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you. I'm good.
I'm always so happy to see you.
Thanks, Jake.
You know, I mean, you just light up the room.
Oh, I appreciate that.
All right, you want to introduce our first guest?
I would love to.
Okay, God bless you.
Jake's first guest tonight is a multi-talented Israeli-American actor, singer, and director. He's a recent recipient of the Israeli Lifetime Achievement Award and has starred on and off Broadway. He hosted his own hit variety show for 3 seasons in Holland. He currently has a new movie and a new TV series. Here to sing a song from his starring role in Barnum on Broadway, please welcome Mike Burstyn.
I didn't do anything yet. At this point, usually the music starts, but before the music starts, since the music hasn't started, Jake, first of all, thank you for inviting me, because Jake is a dear friend, and he told a joke before we started in the warm-up, and I have one for you, okay? I got it from my wife. I get all my jokes from my wife, okay? Did you know that there are two cannibals were just discovered in Africa, and they happen to be Jewish, two Jewish cannibals, in the middle of the jungle. And they were sitting there and stirring the pot. And one said to the other, you know, I really hate my mother-in-law. The other one said, so just eat the noodles. Just what? There we go. Barnum's the name, folks. P.T. Barnum, the Prince of Humbug. And whether you think my humbug's a blessing or a curse, you're still gonna buy it. Why? Because every 60 seconds in this world, a delightful phenomenon takes place, which absolutely guarantees it. There is a sucker born every minute. Each time that second hand sweeps to the top like dandelions, up they pop, their ears so big, their eyes so wide, and though I feed them bona fide baloney with no truth in it, why, you can bet I'll find some room to buy my corn, because there's a sure shooting sucker born a minute, and I'm referring to the minute you was born. Each blessed hour brings 60 of them. Each time that wooden cuckoo shows his face, another sucker takes his place, flunks his quarter on the line to buy my brand of genuine malarkey. God bless and love 'em, but don't feel sad or hopping mad or cause a scene, cause there's a sure shooting sucker born a minute. But ma'am, you might have been the minute in between. If I allow that right here in my hands, the smallest living human man, the sight of that is surely worth a dime. If I present an educated pooch who's trained to dance the hoochie cooch, what better way to waste a bit of time? If I imported monumental cost a lady fair whose head was lost crossing railroad tracks to pick some zinnias, who eats farina through a hose and wears spin tights instead of clothes. If that ain't worth a buck, my name ain't Phineas. Ah, you say that's hogwash? Well, who cares? You'll buy my hogwash, long as there's a sucker born every minute. Each time that second hand sweeps to the top like dandelions, up they pop, their ears so big, their eyes so wide, and though my tail is bona fide baloney, just let me spin it. There ain't no man who I can resist me, can I see? Cause there's a sure shooting sucker born a minute. And friends, the biggest one, excluding none, is it's me. Hey! Oh! Boy! Jake
Mike Burstyn!
That was 1981, you remember?
I remember.
And why are we doing Barnum? We have to tell him.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to tell him. First of all, before I tell him anything.
Tell him why I'm wearing this.
You got out of line. I had to put you, the boys from Brooklyn.
Yeah, before the show.
Before
He kicks all the artists before they come in. He says, break a leg, and he meant it really. Literally.
I got to tell you, so we tape live, right? And things sometimes go wrong. And the music didn't start. And when you're talking about a real professional in show business, that's what you do. When he came up here and it just...
You vamped.
You vamped.
You mean you didn't tape that?
It's... I mean, I love that so much to have just some like... All right, so what Mike is talking about, because I'm going to let Mike talk, I swear.
You will?
I will, well, maybe. But I'm going to talk first.
Go ahead, talk.
Because, so when Mike did Barnum on Broadway, I was playing drums in the pit. In a former life, I was a drummer. And Jim Dale was doing the show. And I heard Jim was leaving, and this guy, Mike Burstyn, was going to replace him. And I said, wait a minute, couldn't be that Mike Burstyn. I grew up listening to my favorite Yiddish record was Mike Burstyn and Chava Alberstein. And I loved it. I listened over and over. My parents would listen to it. Lo and behold, it's the same Mike Burstyn. Now, I was confused. I found out later, of course, Mike is a little older. He's about 10 years older than me. But he recorded that record. He recorded that record when he was 19. So I was about 9. So it made sense to me. Anyway, he came in. These were not easy shoes to fill. Imagine filling Jim Dale's shoes in a show that was written for him. Anyhow, my mother and both of my sisters also, they had early Alzheimer's disease. And I was playing, and I knew how much they loved Mike. And this was a big star. And they came to see the show, and I asked Mike, and he didn't know me. I was a drummer in the pit. I said, do you think my parents and my sisters could come up and say hello? He said, of course. We went up to his dressing room. He was so gracious, and my mother was in rough shape. Inappropriate a lot. He was so unbelievably gracious and loving. I never forgot that. Some years later, I'm now a performer, and I'm doing an event with Mike and his mom, Lillian Lux, at, I think it was Symphony Space. And I went up to his mother. I said, come here, I want to talk to you. And I pulled Mike over. I told her the story. Not only didn't he remember who I was, he didn't remember the story at all, which just told me what I thought was true. This is a mensch. He did a beautiful thing for somebody, and as soon as it finished, he didn't rest on his laurels. He went on to do beautiful things for other people. I will never, ever, ever forget that. In my mind, as talented as you are, that's the Emmis. That's the real thing. Please give me my hand of applause. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank the great Mike Burstyn. Good night.
You're making me cry now.
I'm sorry, sweetheart.
You
know
make
it's
me
true.
cry.
I tell you that story every time I see you because it's insane.
You sure it wasn't Jim Dale? It was me?
Nicht incident.
Nicht incident.
No, Jim was nicht incident.
Well, so tell him about this, because
Okay,
I feel
so-
a little strange wearing this thing. But anyway.
So Mike is in New York, and he called me and said, look, he's shooting a TV show that we're going to talk about a little later called Judah in Israel that has now been bought by Hulu, and it's going to be in the United States. A great show, really cool show. And they have him doing his own stunts. They don't have a bbig budget. Sort of like JBS.
It's like this show.
Right. And I guess you pulled some kind of...
No, I tore my ACL.
Ah.
For you, these people who know what an ACL is, this lady knows what an ACL is. It holds the knee together. And so without the ACL, you're in big trouble. So they put this brace on me, and I have to have physical therapy for 3 months. But that's what happens, you know. They turned me into Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know. Yeah, I did my own stunt. Anyway, so I apologize for having to perform like this.
It's all good. I mean, are you kidding? And I love that you're back in Israel because I don't know if people know, so I'll tell you a little about Mike. Mike was a huge star, still is, but a huge star in Israel. He starred in a movie called Kuni Lemel some years ago, and this is very, very famous. And he was, as a matter of fact, he was so special. He met and was with everybody. And if you don't mind, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. I'd like to show a photograph of Mike as a young man. Oh, now this is really great.
Yeah.
So these are your parents. Tell us a little about this. Who are we looking at?
Well,
I know who we're looking at.
It's very emotional because my father and mother, my parents were two of the greatest stars of the Yiddish theater. My hero, Pesach Burstein, was my father, and my mother, Lillian Lux. They were partners together, both in real life and on stage for 48 years. Wow. And I was very lucky to be born into this family of Yiddish actors. My father came to the United States in 1923. Tomaszewski brought my father to the United States. He met my mother, and my twin sister and I started when we were little kids. I walked out on stage. I was 3 years old at the National Theater on Houston Street here in Manhattan when I was a kid. And then when I was 7, my father, you know, he decided, why not put the kids up on stage, you know, because little kids in those days, we were very popular. My name was Motale, like yours is Yankele, and my sister's name is Zisele. And we were child performers. And I have friends here, I mean, that we know each other for so many years. Ron Eliran, well, you know, my father and mother for so many years.
The great Israeli performer, Ron Eliran.
And so that's how I started as a kid in the Yiddish theater until that film came along, Kuni Lemel, in 1966. And that kind of turned me into a star in Israel. And ever since, no matter what I've done, I meet Israelis all over the world, and they say, "Gadalnu alecha." We grew up on you, you know. And so it's been a real privilege and an honor all these years. But that's how I started.
That's it.
This was on I had a television show in Holland, like your show here, for 3-4 years, and I brought them on to be my guests. And this was a very historic picture. So.
The Mike Burstyn show.
Yeah. like the Jake Ehrenreich.
Yeah, well, I would say it was a big show, and
It
you were
was, yeah.
so cute.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable.
I had to learn Dutch for that.
Yeah, which is incredible. You did the whole show in Dutch.
Dutch is not a language, it's a throat disease.
By the way, talking about Ron, so Kuni Lemel for you was like Sharm el-Sheikh for Ron.
Oh, yeah.
That was, what made you famous.
In 1967, we were together during the Six-Day War. Wow. Before the Six-Day War, actually, just before the war, Ron got the song and he started singing Sharm el-Sheikh. And we got at the time, Natzer Mechake LeRabin. That was the song that we got and sang. And Ron sang Sharm el-Sheikh, and that's ever since, Wow.
And you were such a star that you got to be with some very famous people. If we have that next photograph, I wouldn't mind seeing this.
Ah. Wow. Yes. And by the way, between the two of us, this was when Anne Bancroft.
Oh, yes, that's Anne Bancroft.
She came
Wow.
to spend time with Golda before she did the play on Broadway. She played Golda on Broadway, and she came to spend time. And we were together, I think this was backstage at some event, and she was very special, that lady.
That's
Golda.
fabulous.
Very special.
And, I looked at this, and of course, it's so great.
Where did you find these pictures?
Hey, man.
Wow. Lisa must have
Then
written.
I found a photograph, because you're so cute. I mean, you're cute now, but this is so cute. Look how. Then I found this photograph. I love this next photograph. Show this. How cute is that?
Ah.
That's you with Elizabeth Taylor and Brooke Shields.
Yeah, that's me.
How do you get a photograph like that?
It's photoshopped. No, it's real. It's real. That was 1980, I think. We all had these remember, everybody had curly hair. It was hair. When hair came out, we all had curly hair.
That's such a great thing.
I got a lot of funny pictures.
Oh, God.
A lot of pictures. Yeah.
I know. So, and I just so admire your career because you've done so many different things. So, Yiddish and English, and you didn't only do Barnum, you did the Rothschilds and
We did the Rothschilds, Lansky. We did a musical called.
Did you get nominated for like a drama desk?
Twice, yeah.
Oh, part of that is that you now have directed a movie that I saw, which is an incredible.
You're the one who saw the movie?
No.
Thank you.
This is a wonderful movie called Azimuth. It's a very, very important movie. And by the way, who would think you would be a director? I mean, you're a singer, you're an actor. All of a sudden, you're a director.
You
Fine.
underestimate
Director.
me.
I thought you were director.
A director.
But I didn't.
Not a director. That is well. A director too, but I'm a director.
A director.
A director. No, this is something very special. It's a story that I got from a friend of mine right after the Six-Day War, and I've held on to it for 50 years. And 2 years ago, I realized we're about to commemorate 50 years of the Six-Day War. So I took that story out, and I wrote the screenplay, and I was very fortunate to find investors, and we shot it in Israel. It's a story, a very important story today, especially today, about coexistence. And it's a story of an Egyptian and an Israeli soldier who happened to meet in the Sinai Desert the day after the ceasefire. And I was lucky to get an Egyptian-American actor to come to Israel and portray the Egyptian, and a wonderful Israeli actor named Iftach Klein. And we shot it. We couldn't go to Sinai, obviously. We shot it in Mitzpe Ramon, near the Ramon crater. And it's now in festivals around the world, and I'm very proud of it, really very proud.
It's a beautiful movie. And what I especially like about this movie is, so you're a big supporter of Israel and a strong supporter. And this movie tries to show two sides of a human conflict. It's a different face. We actually have a little trailer of the movie, if you don't mind. I wouldn't mind.
If I don't mind, are you kidding?
Can we play the little trailer of Azimuth, please?
מישהו צריך לנסוע עם הג'יפ, להביא עזרה.
לנסוע בג'יפ? יש מלא מצרים מסתובבים פה בשטח, אחי.
אם יש פה מצרים, בטח כולם מתו. אין להם מים.
very human movie. A very fabulous, fabulous movie. So God bless you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Well,
Kyle.
especially in our times today, it's a question of how do we finally try and live together after all these years. And if there's no compromise, it's a question of compromise, and on both sides.
This is you talking to your wife, or this is about the movie?
It was Siona and I. She's here actually, so we got to
Yes,
be. Yeah.
Mike's beautiful wife.
Yeah.
Sienna.
No. It's.
No, I know you're being serious.
It's trying, to live together. You have to compromise.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
It's-
Am I right? Thank you.
Oh, you just did a Shecky Greene. Hello, a Jackie Mason. You know what I'm talking about?
You know what
Listen,
I'm talking
to you.
about? Yeah.
Oh, I love that stuff so much.
Look at these lovely people. How
I
do
know.
you get these people?
I have no. They came to see you.
No.
They did.
Really?
And
They look like they come from Russia. Am I right?
wow.
Yeah.
Do you speak Russian?
No, I'm studying Russian. Я изучаю сейчас русский язык.
Wow.
Я хочу говорить по-русски. But I played once with my father. I played a Tatar. And I sang. I still remember. I can't remember what happened yesterday, but I can remember a lyric from 50 years ago.
I
sang a song about Tiflis. Город Тифлис, край мой родной, там я живу, привольно душой. Это мой край, это мой свет, лучше Тифлиса города нет. Ай-яй-яй-яй. Yes! 60 years ago. And then I used to dance. I ever tell you a story about the guy that was trying to leave in the old days during the Soviet Union. He wanted to leave the Soviet Union, and he was a refusenik, and he wanted to go to Israel. So they took everything away. He lost his job, he lost his furniture, everything in his house, and the only thing he had left was a refrigerator and a parrot. And this parrot could only say one word, which means death to Brezhnev. And he used to love this parrot. One day there was a knock on his door, and he said, "Who's there?" And they said, "The KGB, the KGB." He said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do? My parrot will open his mouth. I'll be in real trouble." So he was looking for a place to hide the parrot. He couldn't find a place, so he opened the refrigerator, the freezer. And he stuck the parrot in the freezer. He closed the freezer, and they burst into the apartment, and they searched everywhere. They couldn't find anything, obviously. Finally, one of the KGB officers went over to the refrigerator, opened the freezer, and there stood the Fafroida and the parrot. He was half frozen. He opened his mouth, and he yelled, "Long live Brezhnev!" Well, the KGB smiled. He left the room, and my friend went up to me and said, "Hey, Mamza, 1 hour in Siberia, you talk different, huh?" I hope they're getting all this there.
So, I want to talk a little about your new TV show.
Thank you.
Which is insane. So Mike is in a new TV show called Judah in Israel, and it just got picked up by Hulu, so it's going to be the United States too.
Yeah, Rabbi Golub didn't want it, I offered it to JB. They didn't want it, so Hulu picked
It's
it up.
a little edgy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have a clip from this, and I'll let you talk about it after, but check out how edgy this show is. You mind?
אתה לא משתגע, אתה מתחזק. אנחנו מנסים לאתר את החיה שעשתה את זה. דם, זו הברכה והקללה שלך. אתה מסתלבט עליי? שוטה, סדרה חדשה, חמישי, 8:15, בעוד 3
Jewish
ובעוד
vampires! What in the world is that?
This is a fantastic young man. Actually, he's a comedian. One of the most popular comedians in Israel. His name is Zion Baruch. And he wrote this, he created this himself, and it became a huge hit last year, the first series that we had. And now we just shot the second season, and it's about a Jewish vampire. Yeah. I can't tell you too much more about it because I had to sign a non-disclosure.
Before they bite somebody,
Yes.
do they have to drain it of blood first?
No, it has to be kosher blood.
Kosher blood. Okay.
Kosher. You cannot bite and
And
drink anything but kosher blood.
And you have to kill the person with one bite, quick.
With one bite, quick, and it has to be kosher because otherwise. But it's a fabulous, crazy series, and you can see it now. It's if you don't have Hulu, I think you get a free month if you sign up, and it's streaming now on Hulu. And they just bought the rights to do an American version.
Oh, that's great.
So it'll probably be in Brooklyn.
Right. I want you to do something with me.
What?
Because you're the only person in the world that can do this with me. Would you sing a song with me? What do you think?
Would you like it? What do you think?
I always love the, Julie Budd was a guest on the show, and she had the greatest line because, you know, we were pretending. I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, why don't we just do the song we rehearsed?
I saw that, by the way. You know, I see all your shows.
Thank you so
It is
much.
wonderful. It really is. And yeah. And you are providing something that has been missing, you know, on our television screens for many, many years. And thanks to Rabbi Golub, and I'm telling you, it's something that is mikvelt, you know? You know what kvelling is? This
Kvelling
show
is a
is
nice word.
kvelling, so thank you. You know.
Right. Now, I'm going to kvell a little bit, introduce this song. I'm
Okay.
going to get the paraphernalia.
The paraphernalia,
Yes.
yes. Well, I grew up on 2nd Avenue. 2nd Avenue was the Jewish Broadway, you know. And my parents were two of the greatest stars. And I grew up with all these wonderful, great, great stars that they're all long gone. People like Molly Picon and Menashe Skolnick and Jenny Goldstein. I worked with Maury Schwartz. And then there was the greatest of all. He was a dear friend of my father's. He was like a Jewish Maurice Chevalier. He used to come out on stage wearing, and I knew him, he was in his 90s, and I got to perform with him in Brooklyn, actually. And he wore a blue serge suit, very elegant, with a bow tie, a red carnation in his lapel. Hey, that's good.
Hey, man.
Against the Nahara. This is Against the Nahara. And then he wore this. His name was Aaron Lebedov. And this was the song that he wrote and made famous all over the world. Actually, there is a country named after this song.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Lebedev was like the Justin Bieber of the shtetl. I mean, he was like, women loved him, right? I mean, he was up in the Catskills. Women would throw their keys in their underwear. I mean, they loved this guy. It was insane. Very, very charismatic. Very beautiful.
Was it underwear
guy.
at that time or Depends?
It was-
They threw the Depends at him. Anyway, we should dedicate this.
Let's
song.
dedicate it. All right.
I actually, on YouTube, I did it with a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine that we grew up together on 2nd Avenue. We were actually 6 months apart, and unfortunately, he left us several years ago. And I think we should dedicate it to him. He's looking down at us. His name was Bruce Adler, and Brucey was a dear, dear friend. And so whenever I sing it, I think of him.
And rightfully so. And interestingly enough, so you learned this from Lebedev,
Lebedev.
and Bruce learned it from Lebedev, and I learned it from Bruce because I was Bruce's understudy in a show called The Golden Land many years ago. And by the way, like being an understudy for someone like Bruce or Mike, it's not a good time. The first time I went out for Bruce, I was doing my thing, and I heard a lady sitting right about here there. She said, "That's Edler." That's not Edler. It doesn't look like Edler. I felt like saying, "Didn't you hear the announcement? No, I'm not Adler. Give me a break." Anyway, Brucey was great. And Lebedev used to say something before.
Yes.
Yes.
He would come out and say, "So sein sa."
You start about Romania, sweet in a fine, sweet land.
That's right. And the land was named Romania after his song.
After the song.
That's right. I start?
Yes.
Okay. Romania, 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 Romania. Giving them all a man that sees a shade.
Sweet in a fine land. Romania, 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 Romania. Die moeilijke Romania, niet de eerste Romania. Hoi, geweld, Romania, Romania. Skidden op. Das ist a feine. Verwusst nicht.
Oi, dort zu wohnen ist gewesen ein Vergnügen. Setz,
Wusst, das heißt, das können wir dann kriegen.
setz, a Mama Ligale, setz,
A Karnazele.
setz, a Pastramale, setz, in a Gläserle Wein. In Rumänien ist der Gitt, Finken sollten weiß man nicht, Wein trinkt man nicht daran, wer verbeißt mit Kaschkabal. Ei, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dig-dam, ei, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dam, ei, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dig-dam, ei, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dam. Take it away!
Hi, in der Rumänien ist doch geht, finden kann deiges weiß mit nicht Wein, der ich und spät, hin, vorne weiß mit Kastenbrett. Hi, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dig-dam, hi, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dam, hi, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dig-dam, hi, diggi-dig-dam, diggi-dig-dig-dam.
Oi, gewollt das vermischen, ich lieb der Prinz, Mama lieg, ich tanze freisen, bis der Stelle, wenn ich es aber gleich Zimba. Ei, diggi-dig-dam, hopp, hopp, ei, diggi-dig-dam, stock, stock, ei, diggi-dig-dam, truff, truff, ei, diggi-dig-dam, ei,
Sie sind mal Haie, besser kann es sein.
Ei, Vergnügen ist noch rumänisch Wein.
Hey! Die Rumänen trinken Wein und essen Marmelige. Und wer es kisst ein Megewart, jeder ist beschicke. Setz, kein Dillidum, setz, kein Dillidum, setz mal. Setz, kein Dillidum. Hey, Sie sind mal Haie, besser kann es sein. Ei, Vergnügen ist noch rumänisch Wein.
Als Reiche haben Geld, das Sache, das sie nicht gewinnen. Galizianer machen Geld in gewackes Kinder. Setz, hey, diggi-diggi-dam, setz, hey, diggi-diggi-dam, setz, hey, diggi-diggi-dam, setz, hey, diggi-diggi-dam. Heiß zusammen, Haie, besser kann es sein. Ei, ja, Vergnügen ist noch rumänisch Wein.
Hey! Ein Mäuschechai, Mutti, Kim ist besser, keine Ziegen in den Mäuschechai, am Morgen spielen, hab, dann geht's in den Stiel.
Setz,
Hey, diggi-dum, setz, hey, diggi-dum, setz, hey, diggi-dum, setz, hey, diggi-dum. Hey, zusammen, Haie, besser kann es sein. Hey, ja, Vergnügen ist noch rumänisch Wein.
Setz! Hoi!
We'll be right back with a very exciting celebrity induction to the Catskills Hall of Fame.
Folks, the Catskill Mountains in its heyday was a magical place. Just 100 miles from New York City is where Jewish comedy became American comedy. It was a fresh air haven for Jewish families, including many survivor families like my own. A place where for a few weeks in the summer they were able to relax, unwind, maybe even for a whole summer begin to live again. The Catskills Hall of Fame honors the men and women who gave us so much. Entertainers, musicians, athletes, hotel owners. They helped us thrive. They helped to shape American culture, and they left a legacy for us all. Our honoree for this evening is the legendary Shecky Greene. Fred Sheldon Greenfield was born in 1926 on the north side of Chicago. He planned to become a gym teacher, but he ended up as arguably the most iconic nightclub comedian of all time. Shecky was known as the comedian's comedian. When other comics finished their performances in Vegas, they rushed to see where Shecky was playing to soak in his brilliant madness. At one time, he was so huge in Vegas, Elvis was his opening act. Shecky also appeared on The Tonight Show over 40 times. He guest hosted 10. The odd dichotomy of Shecky Greene is that for younger people, his name is sometimes associated with an older, milder style of comedy. Nothing could be further from the truth. Shecky was comedy's wild nonconformist. The very hotels that employed him often had him arrested, only to pay his bail the next day. Shecky was well known for his massive drinking, gambling, and out-of-control lifestyle on stage and off. Greene also appeared in several movies, including Tony Rome with Frank Sinatra, History of the World Part 1 with Mel Brooks, and Splash. He spent a year playing Private Braddock on the TV show Combat. Shecky finally quit drinking in the 1990s. He overcame throat surgery, cancer surgery, and a hip transplant. He has 2 adopted children, lives happily with his current wife in Las Vegas. Folks, tonight we have a very exciting first-time event for the Catskills Hall of Fame. I just returned from visiting with Shecky at his home in Las Vegas. I'd like to give to you some of the conversation I had with the great Shecky Greene.
It's been a long, long time since I saw a gang in front of me. I don't have an audience anymore.
You got one now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with the one and only Shecky Greene.
Why is it only one and only? There must be somebody else.
The world couldn't handle more than one.
Well, you know, you speak about that. That's very funny because some guy named a horse after me. Shecky Greene.
I heard about that.
And Shecky Greene ran in the Kentucky Derby against Secretariat, and he had the lead for a mile. Now, they didn't choose me because I could only go a quarter of a mile. Anyway, when I got to England, I went to do a show over in England. A guy said, you know something, you know, if you're really a Shecky Greene, is I thought you were an horse. I didn't believe it. It's really a human being.
So let me tell everybody, this has been going on. We flew in from New York this morning, and Shecky insisted we have to go to lunch. So we went to lunch, and the entire time it's people coming over to the table, and Shecky singing, and I'm exhausted. Oh, see, even the dog agrees.
But you know what's funny? You talked to those 3 women, and the 3 women came out, and the woman wanted not only my autograph, but she wanted my telephone number.
Yes.
And I like a putz. I forgot I was married. I gave her my telephone number. But if she comes dressed up looking nice, I'll tell my wife to go out for dinner.
So I'm online, and the line is too long. So I mentioned to someone, I said, you know, I happen to have a 93-year-old friend in the car. He can't wait that long. They said, oh, I said, and it happens to be a famous comedian. They said, really, who? I said, Shecky Greene. And they all said, Shecky Greene's in the parking lot? And they had one person stay online so that they could get their hamburger, and everybody else ran out to the parking lot to meet you.
Do you know what's a wonderful thing about that? Because being Jewish, we talk about the Jewish, and it's so important to me that these women were not Jewish.
Yeah.
And that really flipped me out. Figure out of the bunch, maybe one, you know?
Yeah.
But there was one lady that had, Shirley was her name. So she could be half.
She could be. But you, I mean, what you did and what you do transcends all of that. I mean, certainly you're Jewish and you come from a Jewish place. You use a lot of Jewish, Yiddish words, which I love. You know,
I wouldn't give that up for. In my act, no matter what I do, and I do Irish, I do this, I talk about my Catholic wives, but I got to get my Jewish in. And whether they like it or not, and generally I don't have too much trouble, because that's who I am, you know? And that's our background of our people is anything bad or anything that hurts you or something that you make humor out of it.
Didn't you have a thing where you said if you had 3 Ku Klux Klan guys sitting in front of you?
I said, you know, one day I walked out and there were 3 guys and there were Ku Klux Klan, you know? And I looked and I said, my God. I said, gentlemen, I says, you're wearing your tallis on wrong. You got it over, the tallis has got to be around the neck. And I converted 3 Klan members into Jews.
Not surprising. You know, what people don't know about you, and I really want, you know, I certainly want my audience to know, so people know the name Shecky Greene. I don't think people realize what a radical comedian you were when you started the whole Vegas thing and went into the nightclubs. You know, people improvise, but you took over Vegas, you saved hotels, you were everything, and each night was a different craziness.
And Vegas was perfect for me, because everything that I saw in Vegas, I did on the stage. I did, a circus opened up. So I said, I went to the owner and I said, why did you call it circus? He said, let me tell you what happened to the sign company. The guy made a mistake. Okay.
And you moved it comedians were in the main room until and guys like Louis Prima were in the lounge, until you went into the lounge and created a whole new genre of stuff. Nobody was in the lounge.
Well, I didn't know that you knew all of that. But did you really...
Man, we're
really,
old friends.
Yeah, you paid your dues.
A little bit. Do you remember? So we first met about 10 years ago. I was doing a Jew Grows in Brooklyn in Palm Springs. You came to see it. And then you gave me one of my most precious possessions that I have here. This is you.
Oh my God.
And Don Rickles and Buddy Hackett, and it says, "Jake, where were you when this picture was shot?" I was probably a gleam in my father's eye. And it says here, "Shecky Greene, big fan of Jake's."
And Buddy says, "You know something? I would sign it, but the guy didn't give me any money." That's the way Buddy was. Buddy was not the warmest guy in the world. Buddy, we're both drunk and stood right in the middle of the street, convention center. He said, "You know something? You're a Waldo." You know what? I said, "What?" "You're a double Waldo." And then he jumped on my back and I flipped him over. He had a gun. I threw the gun into the desert. I took his car keys and I threw them into the desert. Now, the next morning at 7 o'clock, I don't know who I am or what I am, and I get a call. "Hi, Sheck." "Who is this?" "He's a Buddy. Listen, if somebody was with us, they would think we didn't like each other. What time are we going to lunch?" That's the kind of mind he had.
Well, people should understand. I don't know if people know. Now you're totally straight, but you were a big boozer, big gambler, big everything in those days. You were crazy on stage, but you were crazy off stage
Yes,
too.
but you want to know, so why do we call it like it really is? It's not that I was completely insane, and how I wasn't killed, because something that happened in New York, I tore down the Gem Garage neon sign, 2 cops I fought with. Yeah, I got a little crazy. People don't believe this story. I took my car and I drove right into the fountains at Caesar's Palace. And a cop came over and I was in the water. And the cop was talking to me and I says, "No spray wax, you know." See, everything I do is true. It's very rarely do I make things up. Things that have happened to me and everything else. It's like what happened to me in the service. You know, they talk about, did you ever have any trouble in the service with being Jewish and everything else? Well, I had a lot of guys in the service, and I wore a Star of David.
Wow.
And guys, I want to ask you something. What is that? I said, I'm the sheriff of the ship. You know?
Now, you have a whole thing with Sinatra, too, right? There's that one Sinatra story, which is supposedly Jay Leno's favorite story, right? Is that, you know which one I'm referring to?
But he saved my life?
Yes.
Well, this basically is the truth. Frank Sinatra saved my life. 5 guys were beating him up, and I heard Frank say, "That's enough." But Frank was very frightened of me, believe it or not. Frightened to death of me.
Wow. How so?
Well, that's a long story.
All right.
But he did say to me, and I will tell the world this, he got me and he says, "You are the sickest human being I have ever met in my life." Now, for Sinatra, who we palled around with, for me to be, I says, "Come here." I grabbed him under the arm, took him to a mirror in his suite, and I said, "That's the sickest son of a bitch in the world. I may be the second sickest."
Well, it's interesting. So much of these, especially the stand-up guys, come from you. And if not for people like you, so many of the people we talk about as stand-up comics, I don't think, John Belushi wouldn't be there. I mean, you were like an early Belushi.
Yeah, I would say, yes.
Yeah, with the craziness and the drugs and,
I think it was similar to me.
What about those kids today, this morning, right? That whole softball team, those girls, the little girls, teenagers, right? And you were singing to them and they were like, "Ah." And I said, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "That's Shecky Greene. Google him." They Googled him. Before we left, they all took 1,000,000 pictures. "Oh my God, that's Shecky Greene."
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I love that.
And it's such a thrill for me.
Oh, I'm so glad.
That's other than the pain I got in my leg, because I got the broken leg. I mean, that's the greatest wonderful thing.
But you know what's interesting to me about someone like you, and I know you, so that I know that this is true. See, you love that, but you're not tied to being in show business the way that some people are tied to being in show business.
Hide from it.
Yeah, it's not the business part. It's the joy of giving people
I love
joy.
I love that.
That's so pure. You're a pure, and you're 93 years old. To still be pure in that way, you're not getting paid at the supermarket.
Well, you know, Jake, I am very sorry now that I turned down many, many things that would have really made me a name. Doing Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes,
you know,
right.
They came to me at Caesar's Palace, and they were going to do Fiddler on the Roof. So they called me over, and they wanted to make a deal. All the guys were there, the owners and the bosses. And I said, I can't do it because I can't do anything twice the same way. So I would become a fiddler on the roof, and the next day I'd be a trombonist in the toilet, you know? So that wouldn't be fun, hearing the trombone in the toilet. I used to use Fiddler on the Roof and make up my own lyric and make up my own story on stage. Every day I'd have a new Fiddler on the Roof, you know?
That's great.
I want to tell you, Goldie. Do you love me, Goldie? Listen, I want to tell you. I don't love you the way I used to love you. I want to love you, but I can't love you that way. What do you mean, Goldie? Tell me. I got to go out and milk that cow again. You're not milking your cow. That's a bull, you putz. I'd make up all the... I want to tell you in this story, there's such a joyous thing. To hear the fiddler come down and hear the fiddler sing, you're my Lord. You know, I just love making that. I was going to say, but I looked at the word.
Oh, I know the word. It's all right. It's an adult show.
But that gave me joy. That made me feel that I was different.
Well, I know how kind you are. You have been nothing but unbelievably kind to me. Generous and kind and amazing to me.
Well, you're one of the few people that like me. I mean,
You might as well
I
keep-
can't lose you.
Tell me about, so we're inducting you into the Catskills Hall of Fame tonight. Tell me about the Catskills. You worked the Catskills.
The first place I worked was Evans.
The Evans in like Sheldrake.
Evans
Sure.
had a, don't use any blue material. That was a sign that was there.
Wow.
So I walked out and I talked about the sign. And I talked about my wife, who was in show business, saw a sign like that, and she had to take her blue dress and put it away. It really is a true story.
I love it.
She put the dress away.
No one did what you did. And the pressure of that must have been, I mean, you're flying without a net. You must have been insane.
I had panic attacks so bad that I didn't work for 6 years.
Amazing.
And the only thing that ever settled me down was getting in a pool, because it was like going back into the womb. You know, my mother wasn't that big. You know, she was on the 3-foot size. She wasn't in the 8-foot size.
Bada boom.
My mother would have liked that.
I'm sure.
My mother,
I'm staying away from
my
that.
mother was the greatest in the world. I tell people, I said to my mother, says the chicken. I says, the chicken's so greasy. She says, I never make chicken. I just make a pie of grease. I shape it like chicken. You know? So I used to use my mother in a lot of stuff. And my mother said to me, why do you tell people I talk with an accent? I said, because it's funny. She said, I don't like it. I said, Ma, you know the kind of money I make telling people you talk with an accent? She said, what kind of money? And I told her, she said, listen, do me a favor. Your uncle will be able to talk this way too, all right?
I love it.
So I use the Jewishness, no matter what it is, that saves me. Because if I spoke Yiddish right now, I would be doing Yiddish shows.
Yeah.
Even if there were only 12 people in the audience, I would be doing, like Michael Rosenberg. I'm going to tell you this story. I take him to the racetrack with me. I got Joey Villa, I got Pat Henry, I got somebody else, and him. Get in my car from the Fontainebleau I'm working, and we drive to the thing. We're gambling, we all go broke. It's about the 6th race. So now we go, we gamble, we leave. Now we're over the 49th Street Causeway, turning into the Fontainebleau. I said, wait a minute. I don't hear a voice back there. What's happening? I says, is Michel back there? Oh my God, we left Michel at the racetrack. Now Michel used to put out records as Michel at the ball game, Michel at the, now he's got one Michel at the racetrack. So now I says, what are we gonna do? I can't drive back there because I gotta go on pretty soon, you know. So I go up to my room, about a half hour, phone rings. Hello, Shecky. Yeah, Michel. Listen, I know that you're going to open tonight. You got a lot of things on your mind, but you forgot something. You left me at the racetrack. Listen, I don't want you should come out and drive here. Do you understand? I just want you to come back and give the guy a quarter that loaned me the quarter to call you, you son of a bitch.
Oh, my God. Let me tell you
Jake,
something.
I swear it's the truth.
I know. I would sit here for hours and hours and hours and talk with you if we had
Isn't that
enough
wonderful?
tape. I love you
What
dearly.
you did is the best.
Oh, God.
Folks, he flew in from New York. Can I tell you something? And I'd like to fly back with him.
We'll continue this. Let's promise to continue this. Mazel tov on being inducted into the Catskills Hall of Fame. Nobody is more worthy than you.
I'm
love
thrilled.
you, my friend, and I look forward to seeing you. Give me a kiss. Give me, mwah.
Since you're almost like that, folks, I think the greatest picture that ever came out of Hollywood was done by Jose Ferrer. He played the part of Cyrano de Bergerac in the scene where Roxanne is standing in the balcony, and he has his sword in his hand, and he speaks thus in the shadows of the night: Roxanne, I look to thee. Though you cannot see me, I'm hiding in the night, for you are the only thing that I want in my life. I would love to grab you, hold you, squeeze you, kiss you. God has seen fit to make me the greatest swordsman in all the world, and yet I would throw it away just for the kiss of thine. If I but can once remove this nose, this ugly nose, thus. I'm going to say, Roxanne, I love you. You don't know how I love you, Roxanne.
Shecky Greene. Hi, folks. You know, we're often asked where people can get my books or CDs. We've created a very easy way to get them. Simply go to jakeehrenreich.com, wind up with a book to read, some music to enjoy, or a unique gift for a loved one. Stay well, my friends. I look forward to seeing you. And now back to the show. That's our show. I'd like to thank my guest, Mike Burstyn. My friend, Shecky Greene. Happy birthday, Shecky. Our wonderful announcer, Brienne Bergson. Our directors, Sloan Copeland and Lisa Ehrenreich. Video, John Firstband. Senior Sound Executive Director, Isaiah Abilene. My beautiful friend, Julie Budd. Great, Julie Budd. Yaman Pollard, Tristan Mark, Peter Martin here at the Triad, and Senior Executive President of JBS, Rabbi Mark Olive. We'll see you next time.